Doesn't seem to want to start. Okay, hello everyone. I hope you can all hear me okay. Thanks again everyone for attending the third in our series of 4 webinars looking at sustainable agriculture in the UK. I hope you can all see the slides and hear me okay. As ever, if you can put a message in the Q&A box if you're having any technical issues, if you can't hear anything or anything like that, then that'd be great. So I've not got anything at the minute, so that's a good sign to start with. As we did last time, I know some of you have been able to register with your email and log in with your kind of Microsoft email, the same email that you registered for the webinar with. So if you've done that and you're on Teams using the same email as what you registered with, then you don't need to do anything to claim your CPD point. However, if you had to join anonymously, if you can just drop your name and your basis number into the Q&A box, then that'll be great. They're all recorded and then they'll be uploaded and onto your account by the end of the week. So I see some of you already started doing that, so that's fantastic. We'll keep all recording them. Okay. So I'm just checking my slides are working then. So we've got a few technical issues at the minute, a bit like the first webinar we had, and we're just struggling to get our second speaker on, so which is Philippa. So while our first speaker is talking, I'm going to be trying to get that problem resolved. But I'm just going to do a quick intro and talk about kind of why are we talking about storage. So we think at Basis that storage is so important, and it's actually something in terms of CPD events and CPD for our members, farmers and agronomists. There's actually not that much available. And I want to just talk kind of through why we think storage is so important. So firstly, storing pesticides, manures and fertiliser is so important for protecting the environment. It's kind of the first step in it. We do so much in terms of application of pesticides and fertilisers and manures, but actually one of the critical stages of this is if we store them correctly, then we're doing so much to protect the environment. We also think we're protecting UK agriculture as an industry, and I'm going to go on the next slide and show what I mean by that. We're also protecting the public. There's no getting away from the fact that sometimes we work with hazardous substances, and we've got to store them correctly to protect the general public. And the perception of UK agriculture and the fertiliser and chemical industry is so important to store correctly and prevent any issues. And finally, it's about protecting your farmers, whether you're a farm manager yourself or if you're an agronomist or any kind of other advisor. If you can advise correctly on the correct storage, then the likelihood is that farmer is not going to get fined for poor storage. He's not going to have any issues with the general public. He's going to be doing everything correctly, protecting the environment and in a sustainable way. And actually, if you can advise your farmers to store correctly, you're creating so much less hassle for them because they won't have any issues in the long term. So talking about protecting UK agriculture, here are just some of the kind of headlines and snippets that I saw online just when I searched slurry storage issues or chemical storage incident or fertiliser storage. And as you can see, farmers are fined for killing fish because of issues with slurry storage after a slurry spill. Again, the other thing with fertilisers is there's so much focus on kind of security with fertilisers, how they can be dangerous, and kind of you get quite inflammatory headlines such as to make explosives and terrorists and things like this, which actually just shows why it's so important that fertilisers, especially things like ammonium nitrate, are stored securely. Then we look at kind of chemical spills, and whenever there's an incident like this, there's so much negative press for the general public to see more often than not. So firefighters called out for a chemical spill. And then this was a really interesting one, actually. is there were some articles that were explaining how actually a leak from a pesticide store in the 60s, I think it was actually a store that a manufacturing unit that was making a rodenticide, was actually maybe the cause of why we got such a great environmental movement in the UK. And it was actually, I think it was a place called Marsden, I think it was saying, or something similar, was saying that like that chemical spill was kind of what launched this real environmental movement in the UK from the 1960s onwards. So it's really interesting how it's come to light and how it's so important and kind of evocative for the general public. So I just wanted to kind of show, right, we need to do our best to store things correctly, to prevent this bad press, to protect the environment, and most of all, protect our farmers. So like I say, this is the third in the sustainability series. We've already done 2 on sustainable crop protection in IPM and sustainable soils. Both of those are actually on our YouTube channel. So if you just search Basis Reg on YouTube, then you can watch them and catch up if you're interested in them. They were both really popular, had 300 people attending both live, and people have watched them since on YouTube. So yeah, if you want to catch up on them, they're all available there. Today we've got sustainable storage, and then finally our final one is, I couldn't think of a snappy title for this. It's called sustainable agriculture, but what it's going to be focused on is kind of carbon neutral and net zero farming, looking at the carbon footprint of UK agriculture and how we measure that and reduce that. So that'll be coming up like we've been doing in the last week of February. So kind of finishing this winter series and focused on sustainability. So if you email will be going out, a mail shot to all our members, and it'll be on social media where you can register for that, as you have done for this webinar today. So like I say, I've spelt storage wrong at there. That is shocking. So ignore that bit, ignore that W at the end. But today we've got hopefully 2 speakers. We're having the same issue as the first time, so just getting Philippa online is proving a bit of a challenge, but hopefully I'll sort that in the next 10 or 15 minutes. But first of all, we've got David Randall. So David is going to be representing AIC today, and he's going to be focusing on pesticides and plant protection products, as we like to call them, and really focusing on storage on farm. David works for a distributor company, and obviously he deals with big stores as well. But we thought for our members, actually storing pesticides correctly on farm is where you guys can have the biggest impact. We've then got Philippa, who's from catchment sensitive farming, who's going to be focusing more on livestock, slurries and manures and storing them. And again, the environmental impacts, especially which poor storage and application can have. And then finally, you've got me for the last 5 minutes, who I'll be kind of showing how Basis supports sustainable storage, both on farm with our advisors, but also in the large scale pesticide stores with the store audits and the training we offer to storekeepers. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass over to David. He's going to just share his slides with you. And then while David's doing that, I'm going to go and try and get our second speaker online. So you haven't got me trying to get through the slides like we did on the first webinar. So hopefully David's able to share his slides, and then we'll take it from there. What we'll do in terms of question and answers is I'll let David do his section, and then I'll collate all the questions, and then I'll put them to David at the end of his section, and then we'll move on to Philippa, and we'll do the same there. Okay, so I hope you can all see David's slides there. I can see them on my screen, so hopefully they should be working. And I'll pass over to David.
Thank you, Greg, and good afternoon, everybody. As Greg said, my name is David Randall. I'm addressing you today in my capacity as chairman of the Crop Protection Storage and Logistics Group. Your question will be, well, what does that do? Well, I'm sure you're all familiar with the AIC, so that's the trade body for us as pesticide distributors. Now, AIC members represent about 90% of the UK crop protection farm deliveries. We meet regularly as the Crop Protection Storage and Logistics Group, and our aim really is to spread best practice, to maintain those high standards of compliance amongst us, and also maintaining the freedom to operate on behalf of our businesses for our customers. So a good example of that would be the beginning of the pandemic. We were very engaged with DEFRA to make them aware of our role in supporting primary food production. So we were then deemed to be an essential business and allowed to continue through the pandemic when other businesses were closed. So in that way, we keep supporting our customers. Now, in terms of guidance so this is an HSE document, which I think is probably the key one. So in terms of people like yourselves advising farmers on how should they be storing pesticides, this is the key document. So as I say, it's an HSE publication and it gives you lots of practical guidance. It's quite readable, it's quite usable. So things like where should you locate your store? So practical guidance on keeping it away from other things that might affect it. For example, any sorts of flammables, or keeping it away from haystacks or workshops where you're doing hot work, for example. How far away it should be from dwellings and that sort of thing. Where's the best place to put it from an environmental point of view? You obviously wouldn't put it right next to a water course or a ditch or something. It gives you practical guidance on how the store should be constructed. It'll guide you on various types of things. So if you're going to build something purpose-built, or you're going to convert an existing store, or you have like a container or a cabinet. Key part is guidance on funding requirements. We'll look at that a little more in a bit. How to organise the store, like what signs should you have there, how should you segregate products, how should you approach the health and safety of it. There's a small section on transporting pesticides, which is a consideration for obviously moving around sprayers or collecting stuff and taking it back from say distributor stores and taking it back to your farm. And there's also guidance on some things that might need additional higher standards of storage, such as flammables, oxidizers, and gassing compounds like aluminium phosphide. So by which we mean phostoxin, toluenex, that sort of thing. So this is the guidance for farmers and other professional users. For people like ourselves who are distributors, there's a different and higher code, which is called the yellow code. And that obviously involves us in having basis inspections and that sort of thing as well. So we won't do all the detail of this because we could do an hour on this, so I haven't got that long. But that's easily available. You can get it off the HSE website very easily. And as I say, for you who might be advising farmers, that's a very, very good place to start. So one of the things that Greg has asked me to do is look through the various issues that could be sort of the practical issues that face farmers and some of the implications for some of the things that might go wrong. So one of the principal things you're looking to do when you're storing pesticides is prevent its release into the environment. So if we take, for example, there's an example here where you can see on the left-hand side there's a concrete section there of above there's a single course of bricks with a sort of concrete on top of it. Doesn't come out too well in the photo. You might see that's cracked. So that's obviously a compromise in the bund. If you look on the right-hand side, that if there's any spillage then would run down into a drain that's at the bottom. That drain goes straight into a water course. Now obviously a lot of our products are environmentally hazardous, and they will have that symbol there that the symbol is with the red outline, means it is environmentally hazardous. If you do end up in a situation where you have polluted a water course and there is environmental damage, it's a strict liability offence. There's not a well, I didn't know that was going to happen, or it was an accident, or whatever. There's no defence of that sort. If you allow or cause a pollution event, you're open to prosecution and you're open to the full cost of the cleanup. So prime consideration in storing pesticides is preventing unwanted leaks of it. So how can we do that? Now I've taken that little bit from the HSE website. and probably the key phrase in there is the one here that says all stores must be constructed as to prevent unwanted releases. So the idea behind that is, if there is a spillage of any kind, or for example, if there is a fire into which you're pumping water to control it, all of that should be containable. So the guidelines that I've just talked about, the AIS 16, talked about the principal means of containing spillage is bunding. So you'd have to bund to contain at least 100% of the volume of the product stored. So what that means is, if you are storing 100 litres of product, you need to be able to contain 110 litres at least. And if you're in an environmentally sensitive area, you need to be able to contain 185%. The reason for that being, if water, for example, is pumped in there, so why do you want to contain more than you actually got stored in there? It's for any firefighting water or anything of that sort. So the bund has to be soundly constructed, permanent, impermeable to liquids, and extend all the way around the store. So the basic thing to think about it, if you think about if you're building a wall up around the outside of the store, it needs to be complete without any gaps. And in effect, what you're creating is like a swimming pool. So you need to be able to fill that to the top with the liquid, and it wouldn't leak. That's the basic principle to think about in that. It's a good idea to inspect the bund regularly for damage or for it disintegrating, because you don't want to come to the point where you are needing it to have integrity and it doesn't. As I think I mentioned earlier on, don't site pesticide stores near drains or watercourses, where if there is a spillage, that will be straight away into a watercourse and you could be into a pollution event. It's a good idea to have a catchment area at the store entrance, so that's the place where you're obviously handling pesticides in and out, so you're taking deliveries in or you're taking it out to put into a sprayer. It's also a good idea to have a catchment area around a spray filling point. That's obviously another point where you are handling neat material, or there's a possibility that you could have a spill or a leak from your sprayer. And only trained and authorised personnel should handle pesticides, because they need to know what they're dealing with, and they need to know that they're doing it in the right way. And obviously unauthorised access to your stores is not a very good idea, because people get in there either vandalising it or theft, or doing things or getting access to things they shouldn't do. So that's the preventing environmental pollution bit. On a health and safety front, one thing I would say is that you need to remember that farmers, any owner or operator of a premises, does have a duty of care under health and safety to their workers and visitors, such as, for example, delivery drivers. If there were an incident and somebody was hurt on that farm, the HSC might well prosecute the farmer. Obviously, stores should be kept locked and secure to prevent unauthorised access. Ventilation is a requirement for pesticide stores, so you don't get a build-up of fumes that might overwhelm somebody when they go in there. Good lighting is a good idea in the store, so that labels, etc., can be read clearly and people can see what they're doing. One other thing to be careful in stores is you might have a window. Okay, that provides natural light. There's obviously a security concern around that, and the other concern that people don't necessarily think about so much is that sunlight can damage products. So it can either damage the product directly, because a lot of things, if you look at the label carefully, will say keep out of direct sunlight, or it can affect the plastic that it's of the can. So pesticides should be stored away from direct sunlight. If you keep the store tidy and well organised, you can see what you're doing, and it keeps the floor clear of trip hazards. So either spray operators or farm workers working in there to work with the pesticides, or people delivering into it, aren't at risk of falling over stuff. Putting the right signs at the entrance, again, that's all specified in AIS 16s and what they should be. So it's the hazard symbol, the triangular one with the exclamation mark in it, and no smoking. And as we said before, there's specific measures around some of the more hazardous products. So your post-toxin toluenex, for example, should be in a separate watertight container above the level of the bund. There are obviously guidance as well for poisons, flammables, oxidizers. That's all in AIS 16. Farm inspections, obviously another thing that we, and I'm sure many of you as buyers have been present at or know more about this than I do. They're inspecting their stores under the cross-compliance guidelines, and the code of practice for using plant protection products is the key one. As again, I'm sure you'll know better than I do, there's a matrix of possible penalties containing, depending on whether it's negligent or deliberate, or how serious really the breach is. One of the most common breaches in terms of storage is having old products with expired map numbers. So things that are no longer registered. They should be disposed of properly. The way to be compliant, well, within the code of practice for using plant protection products, this is an extract here from one section of it. So don't have unapproved or unwanted pesticides in your store, remove waste packaging, use good stock rotation to use the oldest first. If you've got damaged or deteriorating stuff, deal with it, and keep an up-to-date stock record that's away from the store. So that should you have any kind of emergency, then the emergency services know what they're dealing with. And the small extract from the bottom is from that code to say what's the legal status of the code. So it's one of these things. It's like the highway code. It's not the law, but if you follow the highway code, you will be within the law. This is the same sort of thing. So if you do what it says in the code of practice, you are within the law and safe from prosecution. If you don't do what's in the code of practice and you do something differently, you might come up in court and you'll have to prove that what you did obey the law. So easiest thing, follow the code. In terms of security, preventing unauthorized access obviously is the key part of that. The possible harm is to the environment, as we talked about before. So in terms of vandalization or people not realizing what they're messing around with. Children getting in there, obviously not realizing what they're messing around with, and some of the products that we have are potentially harmful. Pets, we've all heard stories of dogs getting in and eating slug pellets and things, which generally does for them, and livestock similarly. So it is very good practice to keep the store locked when it's not attended, and equally, if you're out in the field using the products, don't leave them unattended. So they should be within sight. You can see a couple of examples there. So there's a pesticide store in the left-hand side there with good access. A gate is locked. It's got the signs on it. Similarly with the cabinet store and the container there. And there are cabinets that can be used for to put in the back of vehicles that can be lockable. So you can take those around with you and know that if you're leaving it unattended, it is locked and it can't be got to by the wrong people. Now, one of the last things I want to talk to you about is on behalf of us who distribute chemicals to you, in terms of making it accessible for us. So to make farm deliveries easier and safe, having the chemical store clearly marked is helpful for us, so we know where we're going. Access to the delivery for the delivery driver, so if we know where a key is or we know a combination lock number, then obviously we can put things away, make sure they're secure, and it's all locked up when we leave. Keeping the access clear, so there's a couple of reasons why you want to keep the access clear. Firstly, in the guidelines, the AIS 16, it talks about making sure that there's access to all sides of the building for emergency services. So, for example, for the fire people, if they're trying to put a fire out, if they can't get at the building, then they can't put the fire out. Equally for ourselves as people delivering to farmers, quite often we find that there's farm machinery parked in front of the door. That makes the job a lot harder for that delivery driver, because you've got to carry everything from a further distance. That's not easy for him, and there's more chance of bumping into things or dropping things or possible spills. So good, clear access to the store, like you see in those pictures, is very helpful to us. Making sure there's space in the chemical store. Sometimes you get there, you open the door, and half the stuff falls out at you. That's not going to make for safe or secure storage. Having the store lit, as we said before, helps us to make sure that we are putting things in the right place for customers, and that we can see what we're doing. And as I said, the farmer has a duty of care to delivering visiting delivery drivers, under the Health and Safety at Work Act. So thank you. If anybody's any questions, now's the time. We'll whiz through that a bit just to try and make sure we've got time for questions or discussion. So if there is any, please let me know.
Thanks, David. I think that was a great update. I think it's something that actually a lot of advisors learn about in the kind of certificate in crop protection, but don't actually do a lot of CPD on. So that was a great update. Like David said, we've got time now for any questions. I haven't seen any in the Q&A box at the minute, even though quite a few people have put the basis numbers in. So I hope I haven't missed any. But if anyone's got any questions, then please, please ask them now. We will have time at the end. We're going to have plenty of time, actually, because we've had some technical issues again, and we can't, unfortunately, Philippa can't get onto the webinar today. I think it's because of Philippa works for Natural England, who was going to talk to us today, and unfortunately, I think they sometimes have some security things, which means they can't always access everything. But what we have got, fortunately, is Philippa has sent over some videos which we're going to just go through. Philippa was going to talk about slurry and manure storage and management, and hopefully these videos will just kind of cover a bit of a summary of what she was going to cover. So again, apologise for that, that Philippa couldn't attend today. So I'm going to just share these again. If you can't hear them or see them, then just let me know. Hopefully that's appeared now. I'm going to play it, and if you can hear it, then we should all be good to go.
Greg, if you can hear me, I'm getting no sound.
So sorry about that. So I don't think we'll get any sound on that video there. We're having lots of technical issues today, and we're just getting, and I apologise for that. So like I say, again, I'm really sorry. Philippa was going to do a really good presentation kind of on slurry and livestock manure storage, and I can't work out how to get the video sound to go into the webinar sound. So we're being a bit amateurish here, but we will try and improve it. What we'll do is we'll get the videos that Philippa was going to share when the slides over to everyone who attended the webinar today, so they can catch up on them in their own time. It's going to be a slightly shorter webinar today, yeah, because of that. And again, I can only apologise. Last time I tried to go through the slides that were sent over when someone couldn't attend, but unfortunately I don't think I'll be able to do that today because it was quite technical information, and I don't want to not do it justice. So what we'll do is I'm just going to talk through how kind of BASIS supports sustainable storage, and especially this is focused around pesticides. And one of the things we do is we offer a certificate called a nominated storekeeper certificate. Now this is a specified certificate in the code of practice for the suppliers of pesticides, and David will know all about this. I'm sure he's been on the NSK course, and basically for a professional pesticide store there must be a storekeeper there written into the code of practice who holds the BASIS NSK certificate, and it covers kind of all aspects of managing a professional pesticide store, ensuring safety of people, of the environment, and making sure it's completely secure. So really what we're trying to do with this qualification is, while David spoke about on-farm safety and security, we're really focused here on making sure that the people who work in the large distributor stores are suitably qualified and trained to operate them in a safe way. It also continues to be delivered throughout 2021, and 2020 we converted it all to online training, which has been a real success. So yeah, we're offering dates throughout. So if you work within a store or are interested in that, then more information is available on the BASIS website. At BASIS, we also run a store inspection scheme, and this is again is for the large professional pesticide stores, and it's completely independent, and stores like the ones David works in, he will have an inspection by a BASIS auditor, and it basically is written into the code of practice again, and that advises, it's only advisory, but advise that all professional pesticide stores are inspected by an independent organisation such as BASIS. And this is just ensuring that the highest standards are still being met. And again, it's all about protecting the environment, protecting the staff that work within those stores, and also protecting the general public. And some of those schemes have become quite specialist now. So there's the original BASIS store inspection scheme that's focused around pesticide stores. But we also provide independent audits on things like rodenticides stores, and also for the amenity sector, and also the lawn care sector. So the people who come and look after your lawns and keep them green during the summer. So we're really committed at BASIS to kind of supporting sustainable storage and protecting the environment and raising the standards within this industry. So that's really important to us, and that's just a bit about how BASIS does that. Now, again, I can only apologise that Philippa couldn't join, and I'm sorry the video also didn't work, as lots of you have pointed out. But I have had a couple of questions actually that have come in for David now, if that's all right. There's if that's okay. So I'm just looking for it actually. It was something about a spillage, so I'm just trying to find it.
I've just been leafing through, and there were a couple of questions.
Yeah.
People putting their.
So the first one I've seen is from is looking at kind of spillages. So is the operator liable for a spillage if the employer won't change the store location? So what it's about liability there on pesticide spillages. Where does that liability lie?
I would say the liability lies with the employer.
Yeah.
If it's their business and their store and their pesticides that are released into the environment, the liability would be with the employer.
Yeah.
I'm no lawyer, but that would be my response to that.
Yeah, that's good, and that's great, because that links back to kind of what we were saying at the start, is actually advising your farmers on correct pesticide storage. It's all about protecting your farmers, and in that case we're kind of referring to the employer there. So yeah, that's definitely yeah, I'd definitely agree with that. We've also had another question, and this is looking at kind of building a new chemical store. So we're talking about putting a new shed up, and it's likely to be house a dedicated sprayer filling area, kind of within the and a chemical store within this. To get the design correct, is there anybody that could visit to help meet the current regulations and get the design? So what support is out there for people who are thinking about building a new pesticide store and making sure it's designed correctly?
So if I'm understanding the question right, we'll put up a shed with a chemical store, and then attached to it would be an area for putting sprayer.
Yeah, so it'd be one shed that acts as the filling area and the chemical store.
Is there anybody who helps meet the current regulations? The regulations aren't, or the guidance isn't that complicated. It's not as if there's a lot of, you've probably got more compliance issues amongst building regs and that sort of thing than you have complying with the code. So AIS 16 is pretty broad. It will give you the principles. If you follow that, you'll be okay. In terms of anybody that can come and help you do it, I'm not aware of any specific service that does that. You might ask your agrochemical distributor, but as I said to you before, and Greg's mentioned too, that they're working to a different standard, the yellow code, so they might know that very well, but the principles are similar. But as long as you build your store in a suitable place, so it's away from water courses, at least 4 meters away from dwellings, haystacks, places where you store fertilizers, things like that. If you have the correct containment facilities in there, such as the bunding, how you, in terms of containment for your filling area, all you're trying to do is make sure that nothing can escape. So if that is a course of bricks around a concrete pad, that's you know, at its simplest form, would satisfy that. So really, it's left. It's not prescribed. It's not a particular checklist of things that you need to do, or an absolute hard and fast standard you have to meet. The principle is preventing unwanted release of pesticides into the environment.
I'd completely agree on that, and I think the agricultural information sheet is a really good place to start as well. And the other thing is, I think actually catchment sensitive farming, the catchment sensitive farming officers and advisors, if you're in that particular area, I think they might be able to help and assist with a bit of guidance on there. So that might be another place to look, is on the catchment sensitive farming website. And if you're in that one of those specified areas, if you give your officer a ring, then they might be able to give you some help with that. So I think that's all the questions we've got for now. Again, I can only apologise that we only had one speaker today. What I'm going to do is we'll send out the links for the videos that Philippa was going to use, and also the slides from her presentation to everyone that attended today. And again, apologise that she couldn't join. We're going to have to try and resolve this technical issue. It worked perfectly in the last webinar, but again, we've had a slight issue with one of the presenters joining. So yeah, if we haven't got any more questions, I'd just like to thank David again, and yeah, hopefully you can join us for the next basis webinar.